Lindenhurst is a village of 27,000 on the south shore of Long Island, New York. These are the people who grew up there and their stories. Everyone I know is from Lindenhurst.
I live in Seaford now.
Seaford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I visit Lindenhurst plenty. You know, my mother still lives, well, she just moved there, but I still go there to go shopping in the village and stuff and like hang out. You know, so Svelio is one of my favorite coffee shops on earth. So I always stop in there and say what's up to him.
All right. So let's bring it back to the beginning then. Let's talk about your family roots in Lindenhurst.
Yeah, so I grew up in Lindenhurst. I graduated in the 2000, the wonderful Millennium class. My father still lives there. He lives on South First Street. He was chief of the fire department 2 times. And with Weckerly's dad, same thing. They know each other very well. We all kind of like hung around the firehouse together.
So that's the snails.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I don't know if this happens in other towns, but there's like a bunch of different, I'm sure there's different fire departments in different towns, but there's the Piston Knockers, which is North Lindenhurst, the Snails, which is the village, the Bay Rats, which is, I guess, south of Montauk, and that might be it.
Yeah, every house has its own like nickname in Lindenhurst, and then every department also has its own nickname too. So like growing up around the fire departments, like especially with the racing teams, like if they have that fire department racing team things. If you guys are listening, I'm telling you right now, you ain't never seen anything like this. You just go to YouTube and look up fire department drill team racing, and you'll be like, "What the hell is this? I can't believe this is a real thing and it really exists."
Yeah, if you want to see Dave's dad drive that fast car or whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
The Snails is an unfortunate name, though. Like, why'd they get that name?
I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know. I lived there my whole life. I was born there on North 4th Street. I don't live there anymore. I lived right behind the little flower shop. Actually, the people who lived across the street from me owned the little flower shop when I was growing up. So you used to be able to go through their house into the backyard. The guy's name was Bob Gottlieb. He was like my unofficial uncle who lived across the street. I actually used to hang out with his son, Noah. His son, Noah, was from Comac. He used to come over and visit all the time. We used to watch movies. My dad wasn't really in my life that much, but I used to go over there, and he was the guy who like bought us, like rented us inappropriate movies, you know? So we used to go over there and watch all these action movies and stuff.
Yeah, there has to be one, right?
Yeah,
one,
no,
extended family or somebody,
you have to,
who
you gotta have somebody
in your rated movie.
Yeah, you gotta have somebody in your life who introduces you to things you shouldn't be watching.
So that's Albany Avenue over there?
Yeah, I went to Albany Avenue Elementary School.
And how was that? What are your first thoughts that come to mind when you think of Albany Avenue?
My first thoughts of coming to my mind is that my mother sent me to school in a bow tie my first day, which set me up for a lot of success of being made fun of. But no, it was a good elementary school. Most of the people I went there with, I got along with at the time, you know, but I still kept in touch with one guy up until recently. But you know, things change. Like, listen, I would love to connect with a lot of people that I went to school with. Time goes on, things change, and you just lose track of people. You know, I think that's what's so awesome about what you guys are doing with this podcast is like you guys are kind of like bringing that back together, and like I think it's pretty awesome. I know other people who went to Lindenhurst, even other people from other towns who are like, "Yo, this is pretty cool. I like what they have going on here." So you guys are doing a great job.
And I've heard that from a lot of former guests, like, "Oh, I've been texting this guy. We haven't talked in forever, but the podcast brought back all these memories, and now, you know."
Yeah, let me ask you a question. So there was this Instagram page, right? I don't know why it popped up. I got served it as like a suggested thing, and it was like Thurston for Hurston or something like that too. Was that you too?
No. It's not me. Cannot get credit for that.
Okay.
Kenny Kohler, if you remember him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sounds familiar. Right. No, but what happened was it popped up, and I'm like, you know, that would be a cool idea for a social media page. Like, I hope they like really run with this and like get it going. So like, I'm glad that like, you know, because like memories are so important, you know, especially, you know, we spend a lot of times, I know me personally, like running from our past and like where we grow up with. And like,
yeah,
now, especially like as an adult going back there, you're like, yo, Lindenhurst actually, like, I don't know if you guys still live there, but it's a pretty dope place, you know. When you're a kid, you don't appreciate it as much. And like you go back there and you're like, it is a pretty cool place. Like, I think Lindenhurst is very rare in the fact that it developed a lot of resilient people, a lot of people like that we know, or like that, you know, that we know in common grew up to do some pretty cool stuff, man. And it's really cool.
Yeah, and so obviously I know your brother Lance very well. We were in band together. Was it just you two growing up?
Yeah, it was me and my brother and
Yeah.
my mother. Yeah.
Okay. As kids, what were you getting into as far as activities, interests, troublemaking?
We were like big into video games, Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo back then, Nintendo. But I wasn't really that much of an athlete. I tried out for the high school basketball team like 3 times and failed every single time. One time I broke my foot trying out for the basketball team. And I just never did it, And then
Lance did play though, right?
Lance did play. Listen, Lance is the jack of all trades, man. He's the man. Like, he's the smart one and was the athletic one growing up for sure. He's still a pretty good athlete now, but and talented musician besides. Now he's got his son playing like all sorts of shit, like drums, trumpet. Like his other son plays the guitar. My brother took up the guitar. He plays the guitar now too. He taught my mother the guitar. Like, crazy. Like, just a very talented guy in that regards.
Yeah.
But as we were younger, I mean, we really didn't do that much, man. For me, like my whole thing was like I was really into like making movies especially when I was in high school. I used to like make movies, edit movies. High school media class was like the best. John, your sister was in a couple of my movies as an actress a couple times. It was
for sure. I feel like I was in your media class maybe once as well.
Yeah, you definitely were. I really enjoyed that class.
I wanted to get back to the video games real quickly. Where did you rent video games from?
I rent the video games from, there was this video store. Well, there was 2 video stores. There was one on Merrick Road that was right next to Roma Pizza, but I can't remember the name of the video.
Yes, yeah.
That M&M Video.
Yes, M&M Video. That was the that was the best. And then there was the other video store that used to sell the tickets, the concert tickets. That was
Videotex. Yeah.
Videotex. Yeah, it became like Markdown Superstore or whatever it was, which was also a really cool store too, man. You used to go in there, you used to get a sandwich, and they had the comic book section in the back. I used to love going in there looking at the comic books.
Baseball cards and pucks and comic books. I forgot it. I was talking to someone about this, but it's funny. Kids today will never know that like everybody in the town played the same copy of a video game. Everybody rented the same one from that store.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had the hope, and there was like no reserving it. You really had the hope that the video game was back, and like when you went in there to get it.
Or that you knew what to do once you got it if there were no instructions, because sometimes you'd bring a game home and you would have no fucking idea what to do with any of them.
Yeah. It took a good couple hours to figure out what the controls were before you actually like got into it. That was another awesome thing my brother was way better at me at. That was like sports games. He used to kick my ass so bad in every version of Madden that you could possibly imagine. I used to have an absolute temper tantrum in the living room. I'd be winning like 100-4. And he would somehow come back and spank my ass in like 4 minutes.
I don't remember Videotex. Was that Northlandy?
That was on Sunrise Highway, yeah. But after the Ticketmaster was in Marshall's, if you remember that, it was in that little store there on Sunrise Highway. Yeah.
I remember it from Tower Records. That's about it. Or the Ticketron that was in Sunrise Mall. Way back. Yeah.
There was a Ticketmaster in Marshall's when Marshall's was in North Lindenhurst before there was a Sears Hardware. If you remember that.
Okay.
I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez, man.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, as you said, getting into high school, getting into media class and whatnot. Do you think that informed how you do your social media nowadays?
I think yes. Yeah. One thing I regret, like one thing that's crazy is like, I think if YouTube existed back then, I would have definitely like ran with it way more than I would have then. I tried to go to school for a film, but I went to film school, and number one, I don't know if you guys have gone to an art school or any film school, but I always compare it to that scene in Family Guy where they show the artsy film where it's like Meg standing there in a bra and she's like flipping a pancake with a cigarette. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. That's what film school is like. That's what the type of movies that they make. And I'm not like that. Like I'm not into that. I wanted to make movies that entertain people. I just felt like I was out of place. And then I got kicked out of college. So then I got sent home, and then I took up biology and biochemistry, and then I went back to film and did some other stuff, but I didn't keep up with it like I really wish that I would have. But now I use the skills that I learned back then, and I continue on, and everything's so easy now. You do it right on your phone, edit stuff, add music, so I kept up with it a little bit in that regards, but now it's completely different. I still enjoy it though. I love it. Like if I could do that full time as a job, I would love to do that.
And so you ended up getting a degree in biology?
No, I failed out of 5 colleges, right?
Okay.
So I was just a career student. I just kept on going. So when I went to college for film, at first I went to this small college in Pittsburgh called Point Park University. It was Point Park College at the time, but then it became university. And then I failed out because I got caught drinking. It was a dry dorm, so they kicked me out. Then I went to SUNY Purchase, which is an art school, but I studied biology there like an idiot. Then I went to University of Buffalo for 2 years, where I pretty much studied partying and drinking and failed out of everything. And then I went to Farmingdale, like everybody on Long Island does. And then I went to John Jay for a semester, and I did terribly. And I just finished my degree now, literally in, I want to say, I officially, my graduation date was in July. And it was just, I just did it to finish my degree. And it's just liberal arts, man. Like I did it just so like when I retire from my job, it's not something that'll hold me back, you know, and it was something that was just left incomplete, but I just wanted to finish.
Yeah. Better late than never.
Yeah.
So throughout that, were you working, or like when you finally decided that college wasn't for you the first time, what type of jobs were you picking up?
So I was a bouncer at the Nutty Irishman for like all of them. I don't know if you guys remember, but there's only one now. It's in Farmingdale, but there used to be another one in Bayshore. But there was a third one in the Hamptons too. That was only open for one season, and I worked at all 3 of them. And then on top of that, I was also a landscaper. I worked for the town of Babylon at the time. And then it wasn't until I was pretty much like told by my mother, you better stop being a loser and like find a real job, that I decided to take the police test and became a cop. But it wasn't a dream that I always wanted to do, you know, but that was the path of that.
Do you think a lot of people have that same story when they join the police or any type of like civil service like that? It's just kind of like, I need something solid.
Honestly, it depends, because like there's some people like me who are like, yo, that happened to me. And there's other people who it's been their whole entire life dream. And you can tell the distinct difference in between the two personalities,
I'm sure, yeah,
of who do the job. You know what I mean? Like me, like I'm just happy to be here type guy, you know, like, oh, I'm happy to be here. I'm very grateful or whatever. But like guys who like built their whole idea around what their career was going to be in policing and all this other stuff. Like, I don't know if I want to say if they're disappointed or maybe they're more burnt out. But for me, like, hey, I'm happy every single day coming to work. Like, I didn't expect anything out of this job. I didn't know what the hell I was getting into. So every day to me was, you know, I've had my ups and downs with it, but it's never been a point where I like really was disappointed by it.
So can you describe what police academy is like?
The police academy is 6 months of just physical training where they teach you tactics and run. There's a lot of running and physical stuff. And then there's, you study what is essentially, I wish I had something the size of the equivalent of what the NYPD patrol guide looks like, because it's literally like a giant stack. It's over 1,000 pages of documents of procedures and all this other stuff. And they test you on that and you learn all that stuff. And then you graduate and then you learn how the job is really done. You know, everybody will say that you don't really learn how to be a cop in the academy. And you think about that, almost every job is like that. You can go to any job training course and then you're really not going to know how to do any job until you really experience it. And, you know, I don't think it's necessarily their fault. I don't, because you can't prepare anybody for what they're about to do. Like you especially like if you're not used to dealing with people, you can learn all this shit all you want. But if you're not used to dealing with people and talking to people and like having conversations, you're going to have a difficult time, because like 95% of the job is just like literally communicating with people. And if you can't do that, you're going to suck at it.
And this is in the city. This is NYPD.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so where did you end up first? What part of the city?
I wound up in Jamaica, Queens. It's the 103 precinct, which is right on Jamaica Avenue and 169th Street, where that's where I did like my foot patrol when I was a rookie. And then I went like a little bit further south. I was still in Jamaica, but I was in South Jamaica this time, like pretty much where 50 Cent grew up, like right in that neighborhood. And I was there for a long time. And then I went to the gang squad. I was in Queens gang, I was in Manhattan gang, and then I was in Brooklyn Central Booking, which is essentially jail in Brooklyn. And then after that, I went to Long Island City, which is a complete different thing than where I worked before. Then I was in Far Rockaway, and now I work in a unit called the Health and Wellness Section, which is a unit that's only about 3 years old.
So you were really kind of in the underbelly for a long time.
I've worked everywhere. I've done a lot of interesting things.
I recall, like, there was a time I think you were on the cover of a newspaper with some sort of giant drug bust or something like that, right?
Yeah. So this was when I was in the 113. I was doing street narcotics enforcement. Actually, I was an anti-crime at the time. And the funny part is, like, we weren't in anti-crime, as you're supposed to be chasing like felony, like violent crime arrests, right? So we weren't really focusing on drug stuff. Like, it just wasn't our thing. Like, if we found it, we would pass it along to another unit or patrol or whatever. So one night we're driving around, we see this minivan, and we were done with we were in uniform, actually, because our boss was on the desk. If nobody's directly covering you, you have to be in uniform. You're not in plain clothes. I worked in plain clothes pretty much my entire career, but this day I was in uniform. It was the middle of the winter. My boss calls, "Hey, listen, wrap it up for the night. Just go get me a cup of coffee on the way in." We go to stop at Dunkin' Donuts. We stop at the light. Our light turns green. The side light coming the other way turns red, and this minivan all of a sudden screeches through the intersection. Like, they tried to stop hard. They look at us. We look at them. We start chasing this guy. He's not from the neighborhood, winds up down a dead-end street, bails out of the car. We chase him. We get him, handcuff him. He's got nothing. So we're like, what the hell is going on here? I go to the van, and inside the van, there's these giant garbage bags. And I'm like, no way. And I open it up, and it's 500 pounds of weed, which, looking back on it now, it's completely legal. I probably should have been back then, but it was a pretty good deal back then.
Yeah. So as far as like gangs go, what are the prominent gangs in those areas?
Oh, blood. It's just like TV, Bloods and Crips.
It's Bloods and Crips. Okay.
So here's how gangs work. And a lot of people don't know about this. So when you grow up in a neighborhood, let's say you grew up in South Jamaica, you grew up in Harlem, or whatever it is, the real gang that you belong to is going to be like whatever crew your neighborhood is, right? Neighborhood crews, especially when you're young. You know what I mean? It's almost like, I don't know if you guys know anything about the evolution of the mafia. Like, the mafia essentially evolved from like young kids, you know what I mean? Young kids, and then they became the mafia. Gangs are almost essentially the same way, where when you're young and you're a kid, let's say you belong, I'll give you an example. In South Jamaica, there was this gang called the Snow Gang, right? Not a real gang, right? It's a crew. Pretty much kids from the neighborhood, they go to school together. But what happens is, when you go to jail and get arrested, there's no Snow Gang in jail. There's the Bloods and the Crips in jail, and you better choose which one you want to get down with, because those are the people who are going to protect you in jail. So then when you get out of jail, now you're a Blood or a Crip, and you're also part of that crew. So essentially you belong to two gangs at one time. It's not like LA, where like there's this tremendous loyalty to the gang. Everything is very selfish. But when it comes to like drugs and stuff like that, especially like guns, like the Bloods and the Crips really run those areas.
And do you think for a lot of kids, like it's a protection type of thing?
And not only that, like sociologically, right? So the reason I always wanted to do gangs is because sociologically, like, I grew up without a dad, right? For the most part, like, he was very like absent from my life. So I understand the sociology behind wanting to join a gang, right? So essentially they have no role models. These young kids, they have no role model. So their role model is literally somebody who might be the year older than them or 2 years older than them. And they're just looking for somebody to accept them, right? They're looking to be accepted by a group because they never had that acceptance growing up. So they eventually listen to this guy who's 2 years older than them, not knowing that the decision is the wrong decision to make necessarily, because they look up to this person. This person is, essentially what their father figure is. So they join the gangs a lot of times based upon that. And then like their loyalty strengthens by doing these illegal things because somebody's telling them to do these illegal things to be part of this group. You know what I mean? Like, it's this whole sociology that plays into gangs.
So fatherlessness really does lead to all of that.
Yeah. I mean,
in a way.
It's a big time environment. It's big time environmental, nobody, people will say like, oh yeah, like people should just make better choices and whatever. Yeah, great. That's a great fantasy, dude. But like, not everybody who's grown up and like launched into the life that we have. You know, not everybody has the same privileges that we have to be able to say
they don't know better,
right? Yeah, they really don't. They really don't, man. Like, I genuinely like. So part of what I did in gang and like through my investigative units is like, you sit down with these kids or you sit down with even adults and you talk to them and like, hey, just not to like find out about other crimes, but like we would ask them about like gang stuff and like they would talk to you and like you generally feel bad for them because like they really have nobody. Like this is their whole life essentially, you know. And like I always tried my hardest, especially with the young kids, to be like, hey, listen, you know, you're headed down a bad road. Your life is worth more than this, whatever. Every once in a while, it would work. They would snap out of it. They go do something legitimate, but a lot of times they felt like they had no options. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like Dangerous Minds, you know, like they act like that because they really feel like they have no, people don't get that unless you're working in that environment or see it firsthand. They really do not understand that these kids feel like they have no options.
So I guess moving on in your career, you put out a couple of books and you started your kind of motivational speaking. Tell me what the catalyst was to that and kind of what led up to that.
So in 2014, I got in trouble at work. Essentially, it was like an administrative, like nonsense thing. But they put me in this thing. It was in jail. Like I told you, I was working in Brooklyn jail. They took my gun and shield from me and it like really took me, like I had to reflect on what I was doing with my career and my life. And like, I got really depressed because I was at that point where I was working so hard and doing all this stuff and my identity was tied into my job, right? So it's an unfortunate thing that a lot of cops do, and I made the same mistake. So when they took that from me, it was essentially what I thought was my identity. So I became depressed over it. I was going to kill myself. I became suicidal. I had a plan to kill myself, like all this stuff. And I decided that I didn't want to die, that I wanted to live and I wanted to get better. I wanted to change my whole life. I wanted to figure out what I was going to do to make myself better. Right. And it wasn't easy by any means. You know, at that point I was over 425 pounds. I was miserable. I was depressed. I was stressed out. My whole entire life was involved in the job. Like that was my whole personality. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to get better. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to get better. And right around that time, I had a nightmare that my daughter, that I died and like my daughter had to grow up without me. My son wasn't born yet. It was just my daughter. And I said, you know, I really need to change my health. I need to change how I think about things. The first thing I did was I started a police charity, which I don't do anymore. But I started that just to let other cops know that people care about them, you know, especially us. And then I stopped doing that. And I started really to focus on myself, like changing my mental health and changing my physical health at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, especially as men, our identity is very wrapped up in what we do for work.
Big time.
Like our skills and all of that. And once that's taken away from us, it's just like devastating, you know?
Yeah, it's like what the fuck? What do I do now?
What am I without this?
Oh my, yeah. What am I without this? And it's crazy. It's just I like looking back. Like, I mean, I don't want to say I do feel foolish, right? But like at the same time, like I'm glad I went through that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be who I am now. I have no regrets, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, I was so foolish to think that way. That like, you know, and anybody out there listening, like who's tied into their job, I just want you all to know, like, you guys are way more than what you do for a living. Just never forget that, okay? You matter way more than whatever title it is that you might have, okay? Like, I know it's hard to break out of that and find time for yourself and take care of yourself, your mental health, your physical health, but it's important that whatever makes you happy, you find that happiness.
Yeah. So, as is outlined in your books, you had your weight loss journey and, you know, getting into the gym and just kind of like taking it upon yourself to put all those feelings aside and just go for it.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you have to just go for it and try to fix your mind and how you think about things and what your priorities are. You know, when you're in that mindset of work all the time or negativity, especially in law enforcement, like there's a negative. You think there's negative. So if you asked any cop, any cop, what was worse, how people treat us or how we treat each other? It's how we treat each other by far. Okay. Like way worse. So all that stuff is going on at the same time. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to break out of that, especially culturally. Like, so you really have to do a lot of work. That's why I wrote the book. Like, And I didn't base it just towards cops. So anybody listening out there, it's based towards anybody on how to change their mind. Like we all get caught in these negativity loops constantly. And then we obsess over things that we can't control. And we have a hard time fixing our habits, especially when it comes to social media. Right. So it's just like tips that I used to break out of those negative mindset behaviors and help change how I think about myself, the world, what I eat, what I put in my body, and how I use my body. Plus, there's 30 recipes in there in case you want to cook some cool shit.
Yeah. Yeah. The book's called Starting Over. When did this?
It came out in January. I
Okay.
put it out like right at the end of December, really.
I was going to say, you have a bit of a social media presence now, but the first real big post I remember you making was a picture of you with like a pride shirt on under your uniform.
Yes.
And what spurred that on? That's probably before the weight loss journey and all that, right?
This was like right, I want to say at the beginning of the weight loss journey, maybe like a year or two in, very at the beginning. And
Gotcha.
what spurred that was my patrol partner at the time, who really changed a lot of how I thought about myself and the world around me. She was a lot younger than me in the NYPD. She works for Port Authority now, but she was so instrumental in being positive in my life. Like she was a lesbian, right? And we were at a pride detail, and I saw somebody. I swear to God, I saw somebody with that shirt on. And I said, you know what? Next year, I'm buying that shirt. Next year, I'm wearing that shirt. And she's like, okay, like, you know, whatever. And then I was upstairs in my office. I was the field intelligence officer at the time. And I was like, hey, you know what would be a cool photo if I had this shirt on? Because I was about to go to the pride detail that year. I was working the parade. And if I took this photo, like, honestly, it was just a message just to be like, hey, listen, you know, law enforcement gets this like crazy thing. Listen, and rightfully so. Okay, there's a lot of fucked up cops out there. Okay, I'm not saying that there aren't. There definitely are. But a lot of us, like me, like, listen, my stepbrother's gay. Like my neighbor now, she's transgender. Like, and like that's growing up. Like I accepted everybody for everybody. Like, you know what I mean? And like I just wanted people out there, to, especially my partner at the time, to know like, yo, listen, I got you. No matter what, like I got you. I support you. I didn't know it was going to blow up the way it did. And it was both good and bad. You know, like it's fucking, listen, people out there are crazy, man. Like even the post I just put up where like I was like I was getting emotional talking about my kids and how much I love my kids and I see them grow up, and it makes me sad to see them grow up sometimes. Like people say some whacked out shit, man. Like especially with that, like people literally threaten my life via DM because I put like I was a cop with a pride shirt. Like, dude, like you got to get over yourself. It's crazy, but that thing had so much positive feedback. Like I got sent so many things from people who are like, oh my God, this made my day. Like I appreciate like so much appreciation. Thanks. And not only that, that was the post that really led me into connecting with a lot more people that I used to be friends with in Lindenhurst. Like I had lost touch with so many people from Lindenhurst that like, you know, cause I wasn't really on social media at the time, but people saw that like, hey, listen, I know that guy.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of DMs from people and like, you know, like reconnected with my old neighbor, Joe Esposito. You guys know Joe, right?
Yeah.
And like, So like I talk to Joe like all the fucking time now. Like I hadn't talked to him in years. And like I talk to a lot of John Kent is another one. Like I talk to him like every day. Like these are all people that like because of that one post, it changed like a lot for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm sure that was a surprise for a lot of people. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's a cop.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy is like, this is the thing about politics, right? Especially like I'm so like middle of the road. Like people get pissed. Like I try to see things from every angle because I just try to take emotions out of everything. You know what I mean? So conservatives think that they own the police, right? And then liberals think that they own the LGBTQ community. So when you throw two things together like that, people's minds like explode. They're like, this can't be real. This can't be possible. Yeah. It's like, no, two things can exist at once. You can be law enforcement and support LGBTQ. You can be LGBTQ and be in law enforcement. You know, it's just this whole thing where we have this binary thinking. It just like, it really fucks up a lot of people.
And it's hilarious. Like, just seeing when liberals come across like a conservative black person or a conservative gay person and they just don't know what to do with themselves.
It's bizarre. It's just, it's like, how about like just listen to what this is any, and I do this with everybody. I follow people on social media that are like legit crazy people. Okay, some of them, but there's like that 1% of the time where they'll say something that's like really insightful, and I'll be like, you know what? That's why I follow you, because that 1% of the time, that 99% of the time you say some crazy shit that I don't agree with, but that 1% of the time, that's why I enjoy it. And I think people have lost that. I think people have lost the ability to like really not like somebody, but like agree with what somebody says. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, everyone has their own life experience. And it's like, I'm mostly liberal, so
Yeah.
I may not agree with a lot of what a conservative X, Y, and Z would say, but I support their right to say it. That's very important to me.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about just the process of writing the book. How was that for you?
It took about 2 years, and I decided I wanted to write a book. And then at first I started to write like a like an autobiography, but then I was like, nobody knows who the fuck I am. Who cares about this shit? And I'm like, let me write a book about things that will actually help people, things that I use to help people. So I just wrote it literally one page at a time on Microsoft Word. I decided on a topic. I have not a friend. He's like a social media friend. His name's Jason Piccolo. He's a former Border Patrol agent / like whistleblower like guy. He's written a couple books, and he gave me this tip. He's like, draw a circle about this is your book, and then just draw branches off of it of things you want to talk about, and then just start writing about those things. And that's exactly what I did. I just wrote maybe like 2 pages on one topic, 2 pages on another topic, and then I used Canva to put it together into a book format, because I wanted it to be an engaging book. Like if you look at the book, it's not just like words on a page. It's like interesting looking, like more like workbookish type thing. Like
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be that. So then I designed it via Canva, and then I published on Lulu, and you can get it via print or
So
ebook.
it's 100% self-published. It was
100%. Yeah. Wow. My wife too. Listen, my wife's a big help. She's the best person on earth. You know what I mean? Okay. So she helped a lot. So she gets a lot of credit.
And what's the reception been so far?
It's been better than I thought it would be. I was doing it just because it's something I wanted to do. I thought people could use it, but the feedback that I've gotten, like messages from people who are like, I'm reading this book for my 3rd time, and I'm like, why? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, that's awesome. That feels great. Like, I'm glad you are, but at the same point, it's like, why? Like, if you know anything about like me, like I don't think that anything I do is that spectacular or fucking cool. Like I just like I'm doing it because I want to do it. So when somebody has that reaction to me, I'm like, I tend not to believe them almost, but it feels good. The reception's been very good.
Yeah. So I just moving on into the present. What are like future plans for you?
I don't know. Okay. So the second book that I came out with, HFL 62, it's essentially an exercise program, but like as it stands now, it's just like an ebook program. What I'm trying to do with it is I'm trying to turn it into more like a course that you could take. And the importance of this book, right, is it's a beginner's guide, like real beginner. And I think this is the problem with a lot of what goes on in the fitness industry is people like, oh, here's a beginner workout. Just do a plank for 3 minutes and like hang upside down from the ceiling and like do some like crazy shit. Like, no, this is made for like people who are intimidated by the gym, people who are obese, like for real elderly people, maybe children, like people who really, really need a start. Like the program starts literally on standing up from the couch. Okay. That's where the program starts. And I want to transition people into doing activity in their house. That's who the program is geared for. So I'm transitioning the ebook is still there, but I'm transitioning it more into like a course that people could just have for the rest of their life and do whatever they want with it. Other than that, I don't know. I'm just chilling, man. I have 2 years and 10 months left till I retire, but then I will start doing more stuff. But I'm doing public speaking at like either police departments or businesses and things like that, and doing podcasts and talking to people and working out and just helping people at work do their thing, traveling. I love to travel and taking care of my kids,
Are you traveling for speaking engagements?
Sometimes, not anything in the future. This next travel, I'm going to Seattle actually on Tuesday. Never been, and I'm actually going with my wife and kids for 2 weeks. So we're flying into Seattle, renting a van, and we're driving in like 2 weeks time period all the way down to LA. So we're staying in a bunch of different cities, Portland, I'm
Doing
gonna
the
go.
Pacific Coast
Yeah,
Highway.
yeah. And I'm going to Bend, Oregon, and I'm gonna see the last Blockbuster. All right. That's what I'm going to
Nice.
see.
That's what's up.
Looking forward to those pictures.
Yeah. I can't wait. And we're just gonna have a good time, man. You know, like I love seeing it. I think a huge problem that exists in this world is that people never leave where they're from and they don't see what the rest of the world is like. I think number one, they would appreciate their own life more. And number two, they would understand other people's perspectives on like how it is to be somebody else.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, you said the unit you're in now is a relatively new unit. Could you just talk about that a little bit?
It's called the Health and Wellness Section. And essentially it was created 3 years ago because there was 10 suicides in my agency in the NYPD that year. One of them was the chief in the department. So they decided that they wanted to help cops with their mental and physical health more and take care of them. And I actually got a DM from somebody in the department who was an executive, and they were like, "Hey, based on what you do on social media, you do a great job. We think you'd be great for this unit." And I was like, "No." Well, actually, I was nice because they were a high-ranking executive, and I said, "Okay, we'll see." I meant no, but I had a conversation with myself, obviously, and my wife. I'm like, "Hey, listen, this is the craziest shit. They're starting this unit to help people." I don't know. I was very skeptical, of course, and like I was like, you know what? But let me take this opportunity because I do really want to help people, everybody. Like, I mean, yes, I happen to work for the NYPD, but my goal is to help everybody, right? And I was like, all right. So I took it, and the first thing that they did was they sent me to it was a training at this place called Kripalu. Okay, it's a yoga school. I never did yoga in my life. All right, and now I'm a meditation teacher. So if you could believe that transition, but yeah, it's been great. So we help cops focus on their mental and physical wellness as much as they can. My main job there is I coordinate what's called the peer support program. It is people in the department, uniform and civilian members, and their job is to like look after other cops and look after other civilians, like ask them, hey, what's going on? Just talk to them, because we don't talk to each other enough. Like I was talking to you earlier about the toxicity of the culture inside. You want to talk. Listen, I know that word toxic masculinity gets thrown out there a lot, and people are like, oh, this is where it exists. This is right. in agencies like this. You know what I mean? It's a male dominated field. Everybody has that machismo. They don't want to talk to anybody. Everybody makes fun of everybody. Nobody wants to say shit. Nobody wants to show their feelings, all this stuff. Right. So we're trying to break that down a little bit. We're trying to get them to see. We have doctors on board. We have psychologists that they can come see, where it's like 100% like confidential. Nobody tells anybody anything. And then I also help design physical fitness programs. I write fitness nutrition programs for every single member of the department.
Yeah. When I think about toxic masculinity, quote unquote, being stoic and like kind of not backing down it's a useful thing, especially in your line of work. Like you need to turn that on at times.
Yeah.
But when it becomes a problem is when you can't turn it off when you're around friends and family and
100%. But this is where I think that like people like misconstrue what stoicism like really means. Like they think stoicism is just like showing no emotion at any time, right? No, that's not what it means. It just means not letting your emotions like dominate your thoughts. That's all it means. You should absolutely still have emotions. And that's my main component when it comes to, besides peer support, is I teach the department like resilience. That's what I teach them. I teach them, and whatever that word means to whoever's listening, it's pretty much just how to develop healthy coping mechanisms instead of going out and drinking all the time, cheating on your wife, like doing all this reckless shit that we do in our culture, and like trying to find healthy habits, things to focus on, not letting your emotions get the best of you. And stoicism is all about emotion. It's about acknowledging that emotion and not letting it control you. That's the whole thing. And people get that so fucked up, right? But there's a certain point where you said where stoicism is important, where if somebody's in your face and they're yelling at you and doing all this stuff, you have to be mindful in that scenario not to let that get the better of you. That person's trying to hook you and make you get emotional. And unfortunately, a lot of times, they win. All right, you can't let them win. They're just talking shit, man. You just got to let them win. I don't know. I got yelled at a lot as a kid, so it doesn't really like affect me as much as it might affect some other people. But I could see it affecting people, and that's where it's important. But that lack of emotion is just so bad.
And the thing you do touch on a lot in your book is regarding like childhood trauma and things like that. Those aren't things that just magically heal, but it's your choice in how to process them and live with them.
Yeah. And honestly, that's not just childhood trauma, every trauma that you experience. And that's what I try to impart on everybody is like, things are going to happen to you and they're not your fault. Right. But what the next steps that you take to try and do with that essentially is your responsibility. Okay. Because you can become the person who's miserable, the person who like beats their kids, the person who, drinks too much. You can be that person. And it's very easy to do that. And a lot of people fall into that trap, but you can also be that person who has post-traumatic growth and like learns from those things and like develops a better self-image and helps other people overcome those traumas.
And I'm sure you have a lot to do in your new line of work with that, with other people.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess wrapping up, we're going to bring it back to Lindenhurst. I know you're a healthy guy nowadays, but you do still enjoy food, and I'm sure you enjoyed a lot of food growing up around our neighborhood. So we want to know what some of your favorite places to go.
Favorite places to go in Lindenhurst? Yeah. I used to go up until I found a Greek spot over here. I used to still drive from here to Kuzmo's on Merrick Road. I used to still drive there. I love Kuzmo's. Big fan of the South Bay Diner. Love the South Bay Diner. I always like on like those Long Island like quizzes, like what's the best diner? I always shout out South Bay Diner because I love that. South Bay wrap. Absolutely. Imperial Pizza. 100% big Imperial. And the best Chinese food on Long Island. I don't care. You can quote me on this. Is Hing Hing Kitchen. All right. Hing Hing Kitchen on Sunrise Highway is top tier Chinese food. Every other Chinese food, I can't even, it pales in comparison to that.
And huge portions.
Oh yeah, unbelievable. Yeah.
My question to you is, when did you start calling it Merrick Road instead of Montauk Highway? It's a true sign of someone.
I know. Oh man. You know, it's funny.
My parents both did too. So yeah.
It's so funny because like my wife grew up in Nassau. So whenever I'm with her, I call it Montauk Highway, but I just called it Merrick Road. I'm going to have to tell her about that. She always makes fun of me. But yeah, no, there's a lot of good places in Lindenhurst. Like I still go there, like, and hang out there. And like I said, Sosvelio is a good place. There's the other coffee spot down the street, Muni's, right? Muni's is another one, right? And my stepbrother's kid works at the Irish place on the corner. What the hell's it called?
Belfast.
Yeah. So like listen, to see this like resurgence of Lindenhurst is like makes me happy. You know what I mean? It like it's awesome to see all these businesses come back. And I can't wait to spend more time there. Like I miss Warner's Bowl. I used to eat the bagel dog there. I was actually in a bowling league there for a short while, but in the movie theater. But
yeah. Hopefully more things like that to come.
Yeah.
The more the more it grows and the more funding.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that brings us to our last question then. If you could describe Lindenhurst to somebody who's never been there, what would you tell them?
I'm not going to go all Pat Benatar. Do you guys remember how she described Lindenhurst? She described it like it was some farm town in the middle of nowhere. I can't remember her exact quote, but it's not like that. All right. Lindenhurst is a town where there's like, I don't know, 80,000 people. And growing up, I didn't like it. Right. Because, nobody likes where they grow up. But looking back, I think Lindenhurst really built some of the most resilient people that we have on Long Island, without a doubt. And they're just awesome, like middle of the road people, like from every walk of life, man. Like, I don't know. I don't think there's any town like it, to be honest with you. Like, it's the perfect blend of Nassau and Suffolk to me. And I've lived in both counties. I've been everywhere. It's just that perfect blend of personalities. And there's always somebody who you can get along with you.
Great. So just let everybody know where they can find you on the internet, where they can buy your book.
Huge Fat Loser is my Instagram name, which I started, and I didn't know that Instagram was going to take off, so now I can't change it. But it's huge underscore. A great name. Oh, thanks. Huge _fat _loser on Instagram. That's my main platform, and you can buy my book. It's in the link in my bio. All my stuff is there. Shirts, all that stuff.
Well, Aaron, thanks so much for coming on.
No, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Seriously, keep up the good work. All right. I think this does great for Lindenhurst and like promoting, especially this resurgence that we talked about in the village. So it's awesome. So keep doing what you guys do. I appreciate it.
My name is Glenn Schaefer. I graduated in 1972. I first moved into Lindenhurst in 1957. Lived between Catskill and Straight Path on 46th Street. Straight Path ended over by 48th Street, and it was definitely a dirt road from 48th to Sunrise Highway. Catskill Avenue was the only one that went through straight from Sunrise to Wellwood. And we also had Zahn's Airport up in that area. And all woods to the west of Straight Path. A lot of fun. We used to be in the woods all day long.
Cool. Thank you.
Karen Capolini, and class of 78. And we have Kathy Kurtz, Coffin. And we went to Ireland. There was 8 of us that went to Ireland. Had a great time.
Very cool.
Last year we went to Nashville. Yeah, we go to Montauk and do a reunion every year. And our leader is this gentleman over here. Andrew Bacchio.
And this is all because of the 20th reunion? You decided to...
Yeah, because once our kids got older and they didn't need us necessarily, we could go and enjoy ourselves and get together.
Joni Croce, 78. This beach at one time was barren. It was nothing. There was no restaurant, bar, nothing. None of this stuff over here. And they really built it up and they made it a community. And even the town now is just wonderful. And I don't actually live in Lyndhurst right now. I did for 50 years, 60 years. But they really came into their own. And people that live here and are raised here, they don't leave. There's something about Lyndhurst. They call us Swindlehurst, but there's something about Lyndhurst that you don't leave. Your kids grow up here. Your grandkids grow up here. You know, it's a great town. People love each other. We're just average people that like to have fun and, you know.
Lenore Cohen Robustelli, class of 67, lived in the Linwood section from 1952. We had gravel streets, no trees, and we had a little school called Linwood School. And we had a principal that I think everybody was scared to death of, and Mr. Tesla. And every Halloween, he would get dressed up and he would prance all the kids in the school up and down the streets. The friendships that were made in that development, we're sitting here now. What? How many years are we? 56. Well, we graduated 7. So yeah, 56 years later, we're still sitting here. And I'm sure we knew the kids when they were 2 and 3 even. So it was a great town to grow up with. It really was.
Helen Poveromo, class of 72.
Gail Guido, class of 72. And Helen and I both taught in Lindenhurst. I taught at the middle school for 22 years and the high school for the last 11 years.
And I was high school, middle school, and Albany Avenue. But yeah, for 30 years. Yeah.
And that's how you guys met? Or
No, we've been friends since we're 7 years old.
Okay.
What elementary schools did you guys go to?
Bauer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's at Bauer, and that other girl at the red hair, that's our other
bothered
friend,
my
Gail.
friends before,
And the 3 of
and
us.
I told them a story. She said, if they come back, we have to tell them that story.
Okay.
Do you guys remember
Let us know your name and what class.
Leslie Wasworth, 72? All of the elementary schools had summer recreation programs. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And they had, the sports, softball, kickball. Inside they had arts and crafts, whatever. But they used to bring us here. This is where we all learned how to swim. This is where we all learned how to swim, right? Yeah. And many that was, 10 years old.
And what was Venetian Shores like back then? Much different than now.
Cleaner.
Okay.
Rob Warner, 1971. And my father and my grandfather started the bowling alley. And it went from 8 lanes to 12 lanes, and that was a big thing when they had the 12 lanes. It was gone.
How much did it cost to bowl there when it first opened?
Oh God, like 25 cents.
Were they were also gym teachers in the district, or someone in your family was? Am I wrong? That's you? Okay.
I was a gym teacher.
What do you guys think it is about Lindenhurst that makes people keep lifelong friends? Because we've seen a lot of that here today.
I want to know why we have lifelong friends.
You know?
Friends since 10.
I
I met Robin at the bowling alley when I was a little kid in a bowling league. That's how Robin and I first met, because we didn't go to the same elementary schools. But the four of us went to the same elementary school. We went to Bauer.
Gotcha. Okay.
You stay friends for life. You know, it's just amazing.
Frank Rudoloso, class of 72. Okay, so in high school, we get to the end, senior year, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. Go to college, whatever. And one night, I see an advertisement for the Navy. So the next day I come to school and I say, you know what, guys? I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to join the Navy. And my friend Eddie says, you know what? I don't either. I'll go too. And before you know it, 13 of us went into the Navy at the same time.
Wow.
So, and that's
cool.
my story.
Thanks.
Michael Wall, class of 1974. Growing up in Lindenhurst, we would spend our childhood clamming, fishing, and playing ball. My teachers and coaches in Lindenhurst High School have been lifelong friends, including Dan Loria, Miss Ethel Ann Moxon, I still keep in contact with, and childhood friends from Lindenhurst I still see and socialize with 50 years later. Lindenhurst was a home of good schools and good people.
My name is Dean Randolph Langdon, and I'm from the class of 78, 79, because I was supposed to graduate 78. I graduated a year early. Understand?
Yep.
Got it. So anyway, we had this little shack in the back of my house, and it had bunk beds in it. My brother Mike Langdon built bunk beds in there, I think for the specific reason so that everybody could have fun.
Sure.
You know? And my mom used to come out and be like, if any of you girls get pregnant, don't come running to me. Let me tell you about Lazy Lake.
Okay.
There was a place called Lazy Lake. It was on South 16th Street in Lindenhurst. And it was a lake with a chimney coming out of the middle of the lake. And we always wondered, what is that? And then we were like, the legend of Lazy Lake. And then they filled it in with like sand and everything, and they built like a whole complex over there, and people live on it, but we still don't know. Some people might have pictures of it, but I don't know. But I got more stories.